Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about facial recognition. And I know I've done a couple of videos on these this week, but this just seems to be in the news. And this was the most fascinating thing, probably, or one of the most fascinating things I've read all week. Now, if you want to get on the internet in China, you must now pass a facial recognition test. This is what's going on, and this law is soon to be implemented. Now, this is coming from the Epoch Times here in the United States that linked directly to the Chinese government website, which I did check out. Now, the Chinese government basically is announcing this rule, and it's requiring residents to pass a facial recognition test in order to apply for an internet connection via a smartphone or a computer. Now, this rule will be implemented on December 1st of this year. In addition, no cell phone or landline number can be transferred to another person privately. You have to go basically through the government to do this. Now, these restrictions, these enhanced restrictions, are coming from the Chinese Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, or MIIT, and they basically have been requiring all applicants to present a valid ID and personal information to register a cell phone or landline since January of 2015. They're now turning it up to 11. And they published these new rules and requirements on September 27th on their official website. And they have three main requests of telecom carriers. And I quote, "First, all telecom carriers must use facial recognition to test whether an applicant who applies for internet connection is the owner of the ID that they've used since December 1st. At the same time, the carriers must test that ID to ensure that it's genuine and valid. Second, all telecom carriers must upgrade their services terms and conditions and notify all of their customers that they are not allowed to transfer or resell their phone's SIM card to another person by the end of November of 2019. And third, telecom carriers should help their customers to check whether there are cell phone or landline numbers that don't belong to them but are registered under their names basically since December 1st. For unidentified numbers, the carriers must investigate and close the lines immediately." Now, the MIIT said that in a notice that it will arrange for supervisors from MIIT to check telecom carriers' performance and will arrange inspections to make sure all carriers will follow these rules very strictly. Basically, they are locking this down. Now, this also comes on the heels of news that I was reading in like SCMP and some other publications that China is pushing to create the largest facial recognition database, on the planet of their citizens. And we know that their citizens have been under heavily surveilled. For example, they were able to catch one of their most wanted in a crowd of 60,000 at a concert because their facial recognition technology is so accurate. They monitor absolutely everything. They censor the internet through the Great Firewall, and on and on and on. But I thought this was absolutely interesting because you are now, if you want to use the internet, forced basically to go into this facial recognition database. And what's interesting is, by all accounts, this facial recognition database is under 20 terabytes and houses pretty much a facial shot of every Chinese citizen. That's what I was reading in SCMP and some others. And it's basically going to continue to grow. So the Chinese government is stepping up their surveillance. And for me, I'm wondering, in terms of my own, my own internets, if you will, as I'm sitting here in the United States, my own connections, would I be a fan of having to submit my face and everything else to the government to basically validate my ID? In some ways, here in the United States, we're already doing that. If you have a passport or a driver's license or any form of state ID that has a picture on it, could even be like, let's say, a firearms card so that you can own firearms depending on your state, you're already submitting this information to the government. So is this just one step that ensures that we have accuracy and real identity? And, here we are. We also, in some ways, are living in a lot of surveillance. I've also, I wrote an article recently on that I'm sure some of you read, regarding this and how we are stepping up the surveillance, even though it's somewhat decentralized from the central government, unlike China. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, because in many ways, if I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, wow, we are already doing some of this without actually having to go to our Comcast, our Time Warners, our Verizons, and actually submit this information. But when we're signing up for these lines, we need valid ID anyway. They're taking our driver's license or whatever form of ID we're giving them, and they're already registering that to ensure that we can actually, one, afford the line, and two, we're not going to skip on payments, and we are who we say we are and where we live. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. But I thought that was interesting news. And as China continues to ratchet up this surveillance, the speculation is that this is more for censorship, in the sense that now they know what information is coming from what internet line and who owns it. Whereas here, we have the ability to, let's say, obfuscate ourselves through things like VPNs and all of that. And while some Chinese citizens have that option, the Chinese government has been known to turn VPNs off or disallow their use at will whenever they see fit. That's something that we don't have in the United States. I have a level of privacy in terms of what I express if I choose to express it anonymously here. So take that for what it's worth, but that is the thrust of the argument against the Chinese government, even though it seems somewhat similar to what a lot of nations are doing right now. That is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And thanks for subscribing to me on YouTube. And if you haven't, please do. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.